Welcome to episode 3 of Titles, a VCT podcast. I'm Strong. Here's Salah. Welcome to those joining this week from Spike Talk. Had an appearance over there. I'll leave a link in the description, maybe.
Maybe.
For those who have... What was that? Got something to say? Got something to say, big boy? For those who've come from over there, basically weekly VCT podcast, we kind of look at a little bit more on the analytical side of the game, all that sort of stuff. You'll get it as you go. Don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll be fine. You'll manage. We got some spicy ones teed up just for you. Spike Talk, APAC, whatever you want to call it, fans this week. So, without further ado, though, we'll get on with it. We're going to start with just going around the leagues. We're going to talk about a little bit about the games that we're not going to talk about in detail elsewhere. Start out with China. So I had to look at how this format works because China, as usual, for some reason are being different. Every other region has this bracket where basically you have first, second, and third seed in upper bracket, fourth seed and lower bracket, right? China, because they have to be different and have more games. I'm not going to speculate on why they're having more games, but I think you can guess. China decided to have as many games as possible, and they're having like a regular 8-team double all-in bracket. And they've had seeding matches for all of this. Not too much to say about the games this week, to be fair. There was an upset in every regular season game bar one for the final week, which is quite funny. Just everyone clambering to get out of that group alpha, which had like 4 teams. Well, I think every team was on like between 1 and 3 wins going into the week. And then Tyloo lost and blew the group wide open. In the end, FPX and BLG both blew it. Destiny in their own hands, both games. Lost to Titan, lost to All Gamers. Sucks to be them, they're out. Tyloo also lost. Didn't work out too badly for them. They got third in the group in the end, and they got 5th after the seeding matches. Good bounce back in the seeding game against DRG. Irv, Slowly, and Splash all ran really rampant against, albeit DRG are like playing Life, the old EGG duelist now. He's in really bad form in this split. I think he was on FPX or Billy last split. They'll do better against JDG. I'm almost certain of that. Zhai still just ruling stuff. EDG, lose to Zhai still ruling stuff. Not too much to say about China in general, to be fair, right now. I think it's pretty clear Zhai and EDG, best 2 teams in China. Tyloo probably the third one. It's likely those 3 to get out going into playoffs, going into London. We'll see what happens with Tyloo. To be honest, like they've been a little bit hot and cold, but they are one of the more exciting teams. We haven't seen these guys on the international stage yet. They could be really, really good. But that's all for China. We're not going to go into huge detail on China this week. There will be no China segment next week because they are not playing playoffs until the 1st of May. Because again, China has to be different. I don't know what these guys' problem is, but you know, it's fine. we deal with it. Okay, on to APAC. 0 upsets this week, actually. The game that's closest on paper, KRX versus Global. 2-0 for KRX in the end. Global lost Antique on defense and Fracture, didn't really ever get momentum back. They were running Deadlock on the Fracture. I think people criticised it. It's actually super interesting, I think, particularly in a Neon heavy meta. So this has always been a kind of a thing like that, trying to deal with Neon on Fracture. It doesn't seem like anyone's ever really had an answer to it. And the Deadlock actually kind of makes sense, right? Because the whole problem with playing Neon is you always had to think in terms of hunting for util. Well, hunting for her with util, right? You play Breach, you play KO, you try to hunt her down with the util in terms of playing defense in particular. Deadlock kind of gets past that problem because you just put the trips down, it's really hard for her to dodge it. Obviously, she can get past it, but her team ain't coming with her. So it's a really interesting concept, I think. And they had like a plan basically fast flood everywhere, super interesting, but you can't. If you just get outshot, then it's kind of unlucky, you know. If you're 4-1 everywhere, and enemy team just winning on contact every time against your 4, then it's kind of cooked. They also didn't play Taven. Oh yeah, go.
This does seem like a stylistic matchup that Frost doesn't do well in, right? If I'm not mistaken, this DRX. I'm feeling he's struggled to beat DRX a few times now at this point.
Yeah, historically speaking. Let me see what the record is actually. I think Talon always... Well, did Talon... Talon were okay against DRX. Like they lost a lot in 2020.
Did they ever win? Or
They won in
capping about them?
they won in 2025. Yeah. So they hit playoffs. They got for stage 2. They got to upper semi-finals. They beat DRX. They got to upper final. So they were like one win away basically from getting through. This was like a big shock because they lost pretty much. Apart from like this random invitational tournament, they lost like 7 times in a row in VCT competition against them. So it's like his record against the RX is there's a reason. There's a reason the enmities come there, and like obviously Global have never won against the RX, but Global haven't won against many teams historically.
Easy to count against teams that Global have won against historically.
I mean, they're pretty good against Bleed. I'm pretty sure. They're pretty good record against Bleed.
Shout out to Bleed.
Oh boy. But yeah, so I liked what they were doing in terms of the idea, but they kind of get outshot. Haven, I liked the plan they had on Haven and the comp they were running, which was Waylay, Deadlock, Cypher, Sky, Omen. I like that a lot less than the Deadlock comp. The Deadlock comp in full, to be clear, Raze, Deadlock, Teo, Breach, Brimstone. But also, DRX changed comp on them, and they clearly weren't expecting it, and I think it kind of cooked them. So against Nongshim, DRX ran Phoenix, Neon, Cypher, Sova, Omen. Against Global, they ran Neon, Jet, Chamber, Sky, Omen. That's a big shift. And that's hard to account. That's hard to account for mid game as well. I don't know if their comp would have been good against the older DRX comp, but that's a big shift at the end of the day.
The issue that G have with this comp against the Chamber is that you deceptively don't have that many good resources to take out the Chamber.
Yeah.
So, first of all, Cypher can contest Chamber with the cages, right, and being able to cross and change angles on him. It's like quite an even matchup, I would say, or maybe slightly Cypher favored if Cypher is getting into positions to do that, which is a key caveat, right? Where if Cypher can actually, first of all, be enabled maybe to take peaks, second of all, just being able to get into the correct places, which on Haven is quite hard actually as Cypher, because really you only have that long area on C and the long area on A where you can really go into, and both times I think it's kind of hard for you to take that match up against the Chamber. And then on top of that, when they have Chamber Jet, which are now 2 threats in the same way, I think it basically is just too much for GE to handle with that comp, because with the Sky, you're basically getting flashes and info, right? And that's why you saw back in the day so much Sky solo initiator. It's almost like the Yoru of initiators, where she was a bandage for so long because she could do everything, right? But the problem you have when you're facing against a Chamber Jet comp with Sky solo is how many resources do you really have to clear out both? If you can clear out one, is the other one going to become a problem on the other side of the map? Are you now deciding between using Sky Flashes and Sky Dogs to clear out Chamber and Jet, or are you going to use them for execute or info? It's a hard game to play a Sky. A really good Sky will do it well in a good team, but it can be really easy to get lost in the sauce. And I think that's kind of what we saw here, where, the Chamber Young didn't necessarily have the best of best games. 1-5 on first kills, first deaths even. But I think just that pressure allows Human to play a lot easier, for example, right? Just Chamber being a factor in the game allows Human to play a lot easier and allows Human to be able to take more peaks. And maybe it would have been vice versa in another map, you know?
I mean, shout out, by the way, we talked about Young last week as performance of the week. Global did a good job of shutting him down this week. 12-15, 1-5 first deaths on Haven. He was also pretty poor. 7-15, 0-3 on the Fracture. But the problem is, obviously, you give more if you focus it like that on a player, you give more space to another player. Hyunmin is probably a top 5 player in the world at this point. It is hilarious to me, by the way, that nobody in America's grabbed this guy when they had a chance, because he wasn't completely unknown in America's during that off season that he went to KRX. It is kind of funny that, and like
he's full English fluent as well, by the way. He speaks English fluently, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's full fluent. Yeah, like at the very least, very high standard of English. So it's funny that no one basically grabbed this guy when he had the chance to, and he just went to KRX, and now he is the piece that, like, he is like the part that potentially makes him a serious contender for titles, which is not something we've seen for a while from KRX, to be fair. I thought KRX has maybe locked playoffs with this win. I don't believe they have, because there can still be a weird 5-way tie, but they're pretty close to. They're pretty close to getting playoffs in any case.
I have to say, and I think I'm going to get into this later, but I really like DRX's read on the meta.
Yeah.
I think for the comps that are being played, because you saw 2 shifts, and we talked about this on the previous episodes, right? You're seeing different shifts. Some people adopting Chamber, for example, but without flashes, like Navi, for example, did that. You have some people going the opposite way and having KOs and having flashes. They've kind of done both, and I really like that, because it is overwhelming for comps in this meta to play against. I feel like, I mean, I'm looking at it, you're playing as a Neon Chamber Jet, and you already have way less initiative util than you ever would, and now on top of that you have to maybe, you know, especially playing with a deadlock, but even, you know, maybe you're playing something back, I don't know how you're going to be able to deal with all of these things, right? It's just too much, kind of. It's
very good. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit later as well, because I believe T1 also have had a similar read, and they're also doing very well.
I'm pretty sure they have a very similar read. I think it's a good read.
Yeah, it's a good read. Around the league, apart from that, Full Sense won again. This is X-Talon. 6-0 maps now, 3-0 in the games. They've played against 3 of the worst teams in franchising, we've got to be clear on this. DFM, Valorant, Zeta. It's a little bit fake. I can almost guarantee that something from this RRQ versus Full Sense series is going to be a focus next week. So that's going to be interesting. I think it is RRQ, in any case. They're technically not locked to top 3 yet, because they've been a weird 3-way tiebreaker, but yeah, they need to get single map of RRQ and they get top 3. So, looking increasingly likely that Full Sense could be going as for London, but I don't have too much to say about them yet. We will look at this team in more detail, but it's not this week. DFM beat Zeta in the Japan derby, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce his name, Kiadye, Caedye. He is the best player on that team. I'm just going to say at this point, he is extremely good. Better than Mei. I think that's a guy who's either going to put DFM on their first real running years in Stage 2, or he's going to get kicked in 3 months because he can't, like, there's something going on in the team and they have an argument or something, right? Because that always seems to be the case with these small national scenes. You guys, you get your chance, then either they're the ones who bring them out the light, or they never see heard from again for whatever stupid reason. So, interested to see what happens with that, but that kid is the truth. That kid is very, very good. Nongshim versus Genji. I thought this would be comfortable for Nongshim. I didn't think Genji were that good, even though they won last week. It was comfortable. Ash was in for the second week for Genji. He still looks pretty bad, honestly. I think fans are fixated.
They are just doing this revolving door of players, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to figure out what works, I think. The focus from the fans this week was on Zinx going 12 and 31. Most this deficit was on Breeze when 2 and 15, which, okay, I get it. He's been moved off role so Karen can just not do anything, because he's naturally, like we talked about him in the Young thing. He was probably who DRX wanted to figure the role that Young is on now, where he's playing like this chamber, all this sort of stuff. He's playing KO on Breeze. He's been moved off role from like duelist / flex. What is actually supposed to do in that situation, man? Like, come on, be for real right now. Yeah, I don't think Genji are figuring out this roster by playoffs. This is now 6 losses in 8 matches, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, this team is just losing all the time.
They have guys like Texture knocking around as well.
Yeah.
Karen, Texture, these guys.
Yeah, it's very odd. I don't know what's going on with that team, honestly. But I'm not buying that these guys figure this out in anytime soon. I think it seems blowing up soon, but we'll see. RB and Ivy both had great series. You know, obviously the focus has gone off a little bit off Danby now because he's not. He actually didn't play the Neon in the series and went to Francis, which is interesting. Nongshim is a very good, solid team. They experimented at Harbour as well. They've more say to them down the line. I think they're still probably going to make. There's a good chance they still make London. It's just going to be well, I can see them being like a team, last team out, 4th place, something like that. Their demise has been overestimated a little bit. They're still a solid team, to be fair. Yeah, and the other match this week was T1 RRQ. Yeah, go.
No.
RRQ had a rough day. Kind of lost. We'll talk a little bit about them later. We're talking about T1 later. They lost the Antica to T1. just grouping into them. T1 just rolled over them basically for a map and a half. RRQ kind of fake comeback. Does feel a little bit like RRQ are behind the curve right now in terms of comps and play. They've gone back. Obviously, they've had they've got Jovian at head coach now. They have retained Warbirds in as assistant coach. I don't like what they're doing with comps, really. I think it just feels like they're a little bit behind the curve. Like you see on Pearl. But they are running the Chamber Call. They're running KO. It's not really doing much. On Bind, running a very old comp, it feels like. To be fair, I guess they're in a position where they don't really have to care or show anything until after playoffs, because they won the first 2 weeks. Just going to be a question of do they show up in the playoffs? You kind of figured they'll hide their strength until they're either way, but hard to get a read in this team at the moment. They're not looking as domestically strong as they usually do, which is a little bit weird for them. And we'll talk about PRX Deep Secret a bit later. Obviously, one of these maps was not close. The other map was very close, shockingly. This was, by the way, the single... PRX were favoured by more than any team has been in franchising in any match this split. Like, they were like 90... That implies, for those who don't really know odds, that's like 92-93% chance to win that game. And that doesn't happen usually, so... The fact that it was even close on any map is like a shocker, but we will talk about more about that later. Right, moving on to our favourite region, our home region, particularly now, jobless bum, so I have to go back to my parents' house here in EMEA. Yeah, you like that one, fellow jobless bum?
The trick is just to never move out, mate. Just be, that's the real trick, is to never move out.
Yeah. So, EMEA. So, BBO over Giants versus Giants. Giants win 2-1. We'll talk about this a little bit later.
I've got a lot to say about that one, mate.
Gentlemates over Na'Vi. I mean, obviously the big thing here is, until Exit gets there, they are now using Comeback as a long-term stand-in over at Na'Vi.
This was also a weird game, because Na'Vi were ahead 9-3 and completely capitulated after that, basically, on the first map. And if I recall correctly, it was Pearl. I actually thought Na'Vi looked like they were going to win this game, because M8 still looked quite stuck in the mud and quite almost off, right?
Yeah.
And then just randomly Na'Vi, I think I don't know, they just basically hit a point where they just only won one round on attack on Pearl, which I think is rough, right? Like, being 9-3 up on defense and kind of... and that's the kind of game,
couldn't get an entry to save their life. Yeah, it happens sometimes.
For people watching at home also, there's a lot of context behind games. If you lose map 1 in that way, it's a lot harder than for a lot of teams to come back and win map 2. You can be the best team in the world on Lotus, and then you'll completely mindfuck yourself out of the game,
Yeah.
So that was a rough watch, because I really had high hopes for Na'Vi. I still do. And I really do think, and these last 2 games, it almost felt like they should have won almost. And they just don't, they lack this thing of being able to finish the game, basically. And it was something they lacked in kickoff as well, actually. They weren't really noteworthy too much in kickoff, but if you look at how that tournament went, they win 1 round against Fnatic. They were had a really good chance of actually qualifying to that tournament, right? It just feels like they have this barrier stopping them from being able to win the games and finish the games. I'm not sure if it's necessarily just team cohesion or what, but yeah.
Could be a barrier, could always be bad luck to an extent, to be fair.
Yeah.
I don't love
there is some moments where it is bad luck, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the comeback move, to be fair, because I do feel like you brought in a good technical IGL from America. A guy who's a good technical IGL also, that is kind of what his speciality has been. He hasn't really played in the Tier 2 circuit. He hasn't really, he's been insulated from that a little bit, but that he is very good. Like, he's very good technically. He's very good in terms of just in-game stuff. And you've gone to a stand-in who, by all accounts, basically doesn't speak English. And I get the idea of, okay, you get him, you just put him on Chamber or whatever. He looks down one side of the map like he's the real Reeves in 2009, but he ain't playing like that anyway. And even if he does well individually, it feels like you're setting the unit up for failure a little bit. I mean, I guess they probably just gone best player available. To be fair, I get the decision, but
I think it's that, and it makes sense. To be fair, I mean, at this point in the year, no, there is not a single VCT team who's not kind of pressing the panic button, and I think a lot of teams, their mentality is to go all out this year, right? Which is, I think, why you're going to see a massive shift up after this stage as well, right?
Yeah.
Especially with those teams who don't qualify to the LAN. And I think I guess the problem is that Heretics and Na'Vi are not dissimilar enough as teams for Comeback to be able to just work in Na'Vi when he didn't work in Heretics, right?
Yeah.
If Na'Vi were to be a completely different team with a completely different style, with a completely different ideology, then there's a world where Comeback could come in and be really good, right? If they're a more, maybe a necessarily aggressive team, a team that can maybe, he, from what I've seen, does almost require a lot of setup and a lot of other things to happen on the map for him to get his looks in. So I think the issue is that jumping from Heretics to Na'Vi is almost too similar in how they think about the game and approach the game for it just to not work out for him, right? And it just doesn't look like how he did in that Turkish team, really, right? In Pacific.
Yeah.
I just think it's because of stylistic. It has to be stylistic, and the language probably plays a massive part into it. I can't imagine the language issues are that bad in Na'Vi, considering they have 2 Turkish players there as well.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Potentially help him, but then again, had 2 Turkish players in Heretics as well, and I guess it doesn't really help, right? But
yeah, particularly when your IGL is not the one speaking Turkish.
Yeah, I do think at this point we're seeing maybe this side of Comeback that he jumped to Gentlemates a bit too early. He didn't get to fully flesh out how. Well, he's just the way he plays the game, right? And he's now hitting a point where he's kind of capped as a player due to not maybe fully developing as he should have in tier 2 with the rest of the BBL boys. I mean, you look at Lovers Rock, for example, who was his replacement, and Lovers Rock by all accounts was not we obviously have a lot of personal experience with him, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't a complete player by any means when he joined BBL, but his improvement from when he joined to when he qualified to franchise and to when he won kickoff was massive, and it was massive for all of them. And I think that is a big step that Comeback almost missed. And I think now you're seeing really him just going too early, basically, when he wasn't ready.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think you're seeing a lot of the problems from that.
Yep. Okay, Eternal Fire over Vitality, biggest upset of the week on paper. Oof. So we knew Eternal Fire was solid from last week, right? And Izzy did beat Vitality and Blend, if people remember, also under Eternal Fire, but even so... Bam.
Izzy just seems to have these guys on a leash. It's kind of crazy. See, this is a rough one for us, Joe, isn't it? Because this is the X talking, right?
I had a thing about this that you can probably speak to experience from. This isn't even Vitality specific as such. What I saw in this game, the attack for Vitality looked pretty good, or at least solid, right? It was not particularly complex. Didn't really have much going on the map, but it was working. The defense looked horrible. And I think we've had this both ways with Vitality, funnily enough. We had 1 year where the attack was amazing and the defense was horrible, and we had 1 year where the defense was amazing and the attack was horrible. Which one would you rather have? Like, which problem do you think is easier to solve?
It's easier to solve a bad defense than a bad attack. I would say, but I would say philosophically quite a attacking coach as well, to be fair. I think you can bullshit a lot of things on defense and get away with a lot of things on defense. But to make a counterpoint also, if you're in a big, important game, I almost do feel like it's easier to attack than it is to defend.
Yeah.
It's a good question, actually. Probably, actually, it's a 50-50. I guess it depends on the situation, who you're playing against. There's a lot of games where you just get run over on defense and you don't know what to do, and it is a lot easier to bullshit ways to win it on attack, almost, in some situations. But I do think if you're a team that's really good at attack, you're like in that Vitality team, it felt like we were close to figuring out the defense, especially towards the end, right? And I think it's easier to figure out like high level defense than it is to figure out high level attack. But I think it's easier to have a higher floor of attack, and so you can basically have a lower floor of defense very easily, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it looked. It feels like it's always a little bit hard to. Yeah, it can be hard to fix defense. It almost feels like in that sense. I don't know. It's one.
What do you think the problem is with this Vitality team?
I kind of think. So the way I
have a theory, from what I've heard. No.
Okay. I mean, something I was thinking about with this is I kind of like, and looking at how they played against Eternal Fire and looking at the comps. I basically something that stood out to me was they seemed disjointed in terms of you had them pulling two different ways in the first place. You had basically Champion and Prophet pulling one way. You had Chronicle and Durka pulling the other. Kind of feels like on the defensive side. I mean, yeah, you can even see it in the numbers. These two just got completely destroyed as well. I feel like they maybe need to make an adjustment in terms of the comp level even to just play a lot harder for defense because they aren't really giving themselves many tools with this. But I'm interested to see what your theory is with this.
I mean, you kind of mentioned it there. I think they're basically just combined two different sets of players and plus a coach that don't fit.
Yeah.
I think it's hard, man, with this team because there's on paper they should be amazing, right? Like when you have a team with Chronicle Durka, your floor has to be for almost like top 4-5 for every playoffs, almost, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking at a situation where they're not going to make playoffs potentially. Their next game is a hard game, right? It's a BBL game, which is
it's going to be
for all BBL faults right now. It's a hard game. This just looks like basically half of the BBL people basically and the Fnatic people, right? And it's just I'm not sure if they don't agree necessarily even, or they do agree, or if they don't see eye to eye, or what it is necessarily. I have no idea, but it just looks disjointed. And
yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel like they're pulling in the same direction, which obviously is not a way you can't do things that way. You can't operate that way. I mean, we might be overthinking it a little bit, but yeah, they don't look amazing. I mean, and to be fair, again, also we should stress on the BBL side, these players and this coach have had success. They didn't make it to an international last year outside the ERWC, but they were pretty constantly in the fight. They've massively overperformed. So this isn't like a bad team by any means. It just seems like they're a little bit pulling in different directions right now. So have to hope for better. We'll talk more about BBL later, and that's going to be an interesting match, I think, next week.
Do you see them? I mean, at this point, they need to win. Can they get to playoffs with one win from this point?
It's pretty much impossible to ever get to playoffs with one win. Let me.
But then, mind you, they won their first game, so they would finish 2-3 if they got the one win.
You mean in that sense? Yeah, they should. Well, if they beat BBL, then I think they're almost certain to go to playoffs.
No, what happens if they lose to BBL and beat Pacific?
Oh, then I believe they are pretty much out because their first game was what? Their first game was against Giants. They could get into a situation where Giants fall to 2 and 3. Should be fair, both two very losable games. Even so, their best hope at that point is the 4th seed, and the 4th seed is death in this format. You're not making your run from the 4th seed almost certainly.
That would be massive underperformance, even, right? So we're looking at kind of a dire situation for Vitality already.
But
right?
one of those teams is going to basically essentially go out next week. They might make on 4th seed afterwards, but they are essentially going to go out, which is a very massive underperformance in that group in particular, because I think everybody kind of looked at that group and it was like, well, surely these teams are going to make it out because we did not rate Giants and we did not rate Eternal Fire going into this split. But it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretty rough. I mean, let's talk a little bit about Eternal Fire as well. Feels like they're honeymooning a little bit with Izzy, kind of like a baby Nongshim, where you've made one change, you've got like a hard shooting, hard fighting roster. They're just fighting and fighting and fighting. I think they're looking really good. And I think
they look good as well.
I think looking at the other side of the bracket as well, so you've got Group Alpha, Foot, Gentlemates, Liquid, Heretics, Na'Vi, Carmine, right? We will say probably these top 4 going through, I would guess at this point. Out of those teams, I feel like as long as they dodge Liquid, because Liquid is going to fight them but fight harder, there's no one in that side of the bracket which I think they're like necessarily going to lose to. They could easily beat even Foot. So we have to start talking Eternal Fire in London. This is actually a possibility now.
I will say Foot and Eternal Fire are big question marks for me in playoffs. I think I back Foot to do better. but I am interested because I think nobody in that EF team has any sort of tier 1 experience, let alone tier 1 playoff experience, and playoffs is a different beast in tier 1.
True. I mean, they've had a million years in the Turkish league, but apart from that,
yeah, and it's just obviously not the same, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I am interested if we get to a point where, let's say, Vitality scrape through, and then we have the 4 from the other group. You're looking at a lot of teams there that probably should be favored against EF, even in playoffs, just because of experience, right? Like, I could see Vitality being able to deal with Eternal Fire in playoffs when it is kind of more on the line, right?
I think that's fair. I do have a spicy take. I think Eternal Fire, like the one team I think in that other group that they would beat if it comes down to the matchup, I have a feeling they'll beat Gentlemates. Because Gentlemates aren't like uber experienced either, to be fair. Like yes, Darkseid, but
they look also still a bit lost, right, Gentlemates? They obviously did win almost convincingly against Na'Vi, but I do think it flattered them a little bit. But obviously they played really good, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Europe just seems like a bag of chaos right now.
It's been the same for a couple of splits, to be fair. It's been for a while where it's just like the mid tier of Europe is just amorphous. You have like 1 or 2 teams that are clearly on top, like coming into each split. You have Fnatic, and sometimes some splits you've had Vitality, some splits you've had Liquid. I guess it's Fnatic and Liquid, and everyone from 3 downwards is just a blob. Down to like 9.
Yeah.
I think that's just
right now. It seems like the top is also completely gone. Like at least back in, I mean, Fnatic might just still be the best.
I think Fnatic are just easily the best team. Just is there a number? Yeah. Is there a number 2? Is it probably still Liquid? Hard to say. Obviously, we have seen Liquid lose already. But Heretics Carmine both very convincing wins. Hard to say, man. Speaking of interesting things in Europe, Heretics beat Carmine. The run back, I suppose, begins theoretically. Still got destroyed in Haven because Casey's Haven's actually the one good map, I think, at this point. Lotus and Fractures much better. Kushmao's top frags looks more comfortable. Kind of wonder what happens if playoff meta ends up being like low/no neon, because like Koshmaris isn't one trick, but we know how much Heretics have always relied basically on that sort of play style sort of space. They've got a good foundation, just shows you how much difference one player can make. We'll see if it's sustained. I don't think there's too much to say about this, to be honest, either way. Fnatic over Pacific, there's nothing to say about this. Fnatic just looks solid. Pacific are just running back 2021 Apex, complete with an NA import, suddenly being expected to do like ridiculous stuff. Like just because he's the one player who's done well on the team, so he's just expected to do everything now. That's kind of how it goes. Like it literally is Apex. He played. We had him back on the Sage this week. So that kind of tells you where we're at with 7. But yeah, Float over Liquid actually, obviously a big result technically. I don't think it's much to say here either. To be fair, they just.
This FUT team is amazing. If they keep this up, like they are the best team in Europe. If they keep this up, because the way they play, I was watching the Breeze, for example, and it was just
outfought them.
Oh mate, it was just suffocating. Almost, I felt anxiety while watching it. You know, like Sop and Zeus, and I have to say this also. Zeus was always doing fine. There was never a point where he had bad numbers necessarily last year, but he just looks like a different beast while Sop is around. I think he's one of those players where, and it's also in the meta as well, which helps a lot with this, where he just seems to be getting so much out of Sop being there as almost number 2. It doesn't ever look like there's a clear number 1 and 2 between them either. It always looks like they're just playing this like little 1-2 game where one of them is going to fight, and the other one's going to fight, and then the other one's going to peek, and the other one's going to peek.
This was a thing I thought about with Zeus. It's the way he moves and the way he basically approaches stuff. He is a guy who, like, if you go into a game and your full focus is on Zeus, then he is not easy to shut down, but he will get shut down. But you put him with Stop, and teams can't do it in the same way. Teams cannot shut him down in the same way as they used to, and. And then you got Yeti as well.
Sociable just playing amazingly as well. Like it's just this team looks good right now, to be honest.
Yeah, and Liquid look fine still, but I don't like what they're doing on Breeze.
I think Liquid underperformed a bit this game. I do think normally I would still think they could do better.
I don't know why you're putting Camera again on. Just some teams have some obsession with KO. I don't know, man. Haven was a slugfest as well. Obviously, it went to double overtime. Zeus dropped 30 on their heads. Happens.
Yeah.
Neither team showed us anything like spectacular, but FUT just do look very solid. And BBL Giants we're going to do later. Okay, on to Americas. Full slate this week. We delayed recording by a day. See all the games.
I did.
You did. Okay, let's start. MV against C9. Oxy has a good series, +10. C9 are doing a weird thing right now where they're kind of onto... How to put it? Let me put this up for a second. It feels like C9 are almost doing like old NRG stuff. They're prioritizing Vice, they're prioritizing double initiators really, really highly in a meta which isn't really doing it that much. I guess just to set up Oxy, play rounds out from advantage from there. Like he had pretty good stats in this series again.
Vice just seems to be a full NA read, right?
Yeah.
It's only NA already.
Yeah, well, I think I get it because I mean we were kind of playing with Vice a lot. G2 were playing with Vice a lot. It works. I think it works pretty well in general, but the stuff it does is good, right? It's one of the few initiators where it hasn't, not Sentinels, that hasn't been massively nerfed. It feels like there was like that one small nerf, but she's still in a pretty decent state. The problem with her is just obviously you just don't get any info at all off of her. So you are like hard committing to a certain way of playing when you play her, and NA loves it because NA just basically thinks they can figure out what the enemy's doing anyway. Other regions don't seem to like it, and like to be fair, also there's stuff with there's debate over which duelist Vice is good into and which she isn't. The one we know she isn't good into is Yoru, but no Yoru anymore to worry about, basically. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I mean we liked it a lot. But they're playing this stuff basically, and then they're running Zeppers on duelist, Elsis on duelist, initiator. And the problem is now they're running into a team which has flashes and can aim, and it turns out that kind of counters them. Eggs has now moved over to Phoenix on Pearl. Went 16-10. Did really, really well if you watch the games. He was on Veto last week, I believe, on Pearl, and he went 6-22, so he's got away from that. Yeah, I don't know what C9's read is, and she's driving to play this, really. They just look kind of bad, honestly. And Envy are building up a little momentum, to be fair. I would not be shocked if Envy actually sneak a 2 or 3 seed out of this group, and then do something versus someone out of the other group in playoffs. Like this is like a dark horse still. I could see them making a London bid here because you look at this group. I would expect G2 to bounce back, but Loud ain't doing stuff to split. Cloud9 ain't doing stuff to split. Only takes them.
B2 being 0-2 is kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah.
in that group.
But only takes one upset here for them to potentially take a 3 seed. Or even here. I think they'd be G2, but yeah, Envy are kind of like low-key. They're low-key doing something here. It's interesting. Speaking of G2 are 0-2. And that's crazy, right? So any like
First of all,
yeah, go.
The LATAM players seem to run America right now. Or
Yeah,
the
it's like
orgs as well.
ANZ,
Are we gonna say something about this? How North America has just completely fallen in this region.
To be fair, there was like, I feel like there was like a, because obviously we're old heads and we're kind of stuck in like the pre-franchising, remembering stuff from then. I feel like there was a period in like 2021 or 2022 where the LATAM teams were low-key kind of cooking. It might just be relative expectations, because if you come from League in particular, you don't expect LATAM teams to do anything, because they never did in League because of how the League's set up. But you had like Crew made that run to semi-finals in Champs 2021. And LATAM teams always overperformed, it felt like. So maybe we're just seeing the return of that.
I felt like every time they performed, it was like a surprise almost, right? Whereas right now, the league runs through them. Like, it's not just the orgs. I mean, if you look at these teams, MIBR is like a half LATAM team / does Brazil count as LATAM? I guess so, right?
Yeah, it does. It generally does.
So you have like a half LATAM team over at MIBR, Leviathan, of course, full LATAM, Loud full LATAM, Furia, not really, but you know, LATAM Org plus Arts in IGLing, like, and Crew also. They genuinely seem like they're running the league right now.
One important point to be made here: a lot more young talent has come through from these LATAM teams than was the case in Americas.
Yes,
like obviously
it's a very good point.
Like obviously NRG we brought in tier 2 talent, but they were also like quite experienced tier 2 talent. These guys are just bringing 18-year-olds. Sato was just turned eligible and really went up to the league. Obviously, Spike, I think, turned eligible last year. Just looking at its Leviathan team. I think Blows might even be eligible this year. I think Neon definitely was, because like, he wasn't there at kickoff. It's like King on 4 18-year-olds, basically. They're actually.
I love what Leviathan did, by the way. Yeah. I really like what Leviathan did. I think, first of all, Honor was always actually quite a good coach. It felt like Leviathan always had the most success when he was there, and crew almost. So he was like, he had outside issues as well with some of some other stuff, but like as a coach, he always seemed to be really good, right?
Yeah.
Especially from the outside, especially playing against him. I remember it felt like he was quite good, and they've done this full. Basically, they had this clown fiesta for the last 2 years. They had with Aspas and the weird kind of rosters and staffs they were making, right, and decisions they were making. And it feels like they kind of just burnt it all down and went the route they should have gone always, which is what we're seeing now, and it just looks great. I mean, that team is young as fuck. It feels like all of them, apart from, I mean, even King as an IGL is still quite young, if I'm not mistaken.
He's getting on a little bit now, to be fair. I mean, that means to be like 24, but yeah.
But yeah,
he's 24.
This team just looks. I'm a big fan of what they did. I'm a big fan that they brought Honored from the academy, I think, where he was last year.
Yeah,
just big fan of overall everything they've done. It looks good right now, to be honest, as well.
I mean, and to be fair, people forget this team was like crew. We'll talk about a little bit of that later. They were surprising in terms of how good I think they've been this split, but we were kind of expecting Leviathan to be a good team because Sato had an amazing thing last year. The 4 shooters in IGL, people in the scene were checking for that in the scene. I know in NA. Like King's never really been bad in his career as well, apart from the one time he was taken off of IGL. Like Loki, maybe he's the. I guess we can't say because Sadek exists, but maybe King is like the fallen of Valorant. It just sounds just elevating his scene. Yeah, I don't think it's as shocking. I like that this performance. I don't think it's as shocking as people made out that they would beat G2. G2 looked a lot better this week than he did last week, to be fair. G2 just seemed like a very, very good 0-2 team, but Leviathan are just like a genuine title contender, is what I'm seeing from it. I mean, people are obsessing over the Harbour comps as well. It's like everyone's fixation on why you're running this. To be fair, dominated on Breeze. This was really well played. Like, we won't review it this week, but this was a really nice map to watch. Splits kind of had the same problems as last week. Did we talk about it in detail last week? I think we did, right?
Yeah.
It's the same things in terms of, look, the comp is pretty good. Like, the comp is pretty good. Valens that plays it really, really well. You do have the Vice and
just
stuff like that.
Mismatch in terms of meta and playstyles.
There's some weird things with stopping and that sort of stuff as well, weirdly, but but they could have easily won this map. It's one of those maps where it's like, yeah, they're up. They were 11-11, just lose the last 2 swing rounds. It happens, and then Bind again. Should probably have won Bind. Can't really blame the comp here. They're on this Vice thing. I don't think it's good on. It's like when we played Deadlock on Bind back in Vitality, and it just doesn't bear up to reality sometimes, you know.
I still swear that's good though, mate. I still swear, I'll never get off that one. I'm never gonna live that one down. Especially when I think it was like on some random podcast, they were talking about how we were running Deadlock everywhere, and man, I just never get over that, because that. Just for context, you can go look at this on VLR. Yeah. We were, I think, one of the first big teams to play Deadlock. I can't remember anyone else doing it at that time.
No.
And the idea, in theory, was immaculate, guys, because we were playing as Navi that week, and we were anti-stratting and making game plans for every team individually, right? And we had rounds called Fuck Angel and Mega Fuck Angel and, Run Down Angel, where we had molly lineups from everywhere and, sit lineups from everywhere. It just felt amazing. And then Angel dropped 30 on us and we never played Deadlock again.
25-50, 4-1,
And Angel is one of my closest friends, but he's never done this before and he's never done this after.
More iconic than the Jet Angel game for us, personally.
I'll never live this down. Because this felt like genius to me. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. But it's it was a close series. I think they get a little bit unlucky in some things. They should have been a 2-0 clean out. And obviously for G2 side, just how they react under pressure. They have to win out from here now, essentially, which they can easily do. Not easily, but they've got Loud and then C9.
You'd back up being able to win these three.
Yeah, you'd be backing quite heavily.
They've had the hard games at this point.
Yeah,
exactly. If you're G2, Josh Arty is a fantastic coach. I'm sure that he's sitting there thinking, okay, like it's 0-2, but this is not a real 0-2.
Exactly.
This is a 3-2. If you have to think about it like that, basically, you just need to polish off the games you should win. I mean, you can say that MIBR is going to be a 50-50 just because of how good players are.
It's not,
say Lev,
it's not. Yeah. But,
and Lev, they're hitting you with different things, and that's fine. But I think the next 3 games they should win.
Yeah. MIBR versus Loud, nothing to say here really. Demolition job. Darker got shut down hard after he showed up last week. This situation is a bit weird. Obviously, they're still playing with Batty. The pieces here on that team are good. They haven't outshot the 4th seed because of the MV head-to-head now, but like I said last week, this team just needs to, just don't meddle with the team, man. Let them go to stage 2 and see what happens. You're not going to magically make this work, Loud management. MLBR also, there's not much they did, just look solid. But this wasn't a test for them. This was, again, a very one-sided game. It was expected to be, so. Furia versus EG. Little shaky from Furia. The more I looked at it, the more shaky it kind of seemed. But we were maybe going to look at one of these maps, but I ended up deciding against it last second. EG upset the map 1. This is like a thing that EG just seemed to do to teams. They did to G2 last year as well, I remember. Furia rolled in map 2. Map 3 was a little bit weird. It felt like Furia was in control at the time. I look back, it's a little bit shakier. They showed up well as the clock went down, which is a good testament to coaching staff to Artsin. This is actually kind of the first time we've seen Fury play against a bad team, funnily enough. Or like a team that we would expect to be bad, because they obviously went on this perfect run through playoff.
To be fair, coming into the season, Fury were the bad team. They were just expected to be the bad team, right? So.
But look at this, I guess Sub Crew was not particularly good. But even then, I remember now, Sub Crew, they looked pretty fucking bad. They dropped first map against Benji, MTA, Nagsy, Infiltrator and Governor. 3/5 of the academy team and the 2 American players they could basically draft in. And I completely forgot about this until now. Because I was looking at doing content at the time, and this is something I noticed. They looked pretty bad against Crew, and then they bounced back and they beat a Sentinel team, which was still pretty high up at the time. Then they played G2 and then they played MLBR. And then they played these 2 games close as well. And then obviously they beat. This is the first time they're playing against a bad team, as such, right? So it'll be interesting to see, because this could be like a case where just Furia play down to their opponent's level, which would be interesting for some of the games coming up, but we'll see. And the other result, obviously, we have 100 Thieves and Sentinels, 2-0 to Sentinels. We'll talk a little bit about that later. We do have to acknowledge this happened. NRG lost 2-0.
What do you think about it, Strong?
What do you think? I know you watched this one. I know you.
Yeah,
you were in my DMs about this one.
I can talk about this one. It seems as if NRG are just lost in the sauce right now. I think. I'm just going to completely basically breeze through the fact that you're not there, right? I'm just on a base level of. It just feels like. It just feels like nothing works for them right now, and it feels like the meta is not favoring them, and it feels like they don't trust, themselves. And I think I recall even during kickoff where we were watching the games together, right? And I just remember that there were almost being similar struggles for a lot of it, and then you guys had this flip switch moment where the team just started playing mega aggressive, right? And I recall it was even
midway through that best of 5.
Yeah, there was almost this switch that was flicked. And you guys were just insane again. And I'm wondering if basically that was, it's harder to replicate now that, we're in deeper into the season and maybe they're getting more found out in some areas. And it honestly just didn't seem like NRG. They seemed unconfident in the duels they were taking. They seemed unconfident in the fights they were taking. They seemed to question a lot. Keiko having a rough performance on... They split, I think it was.
Worth noting, to your point, they did pick up quite a bit in the back half of both of those game 2s so far.
I don't think they're in that much trouble in this. I still think they should make playoffs, right? I mean, who have they got to play against left at this point?
So they've got 100 Thieves next week, then they've got EG, and then they've got Sentinels. So you would expect them to beat EG pretty much no matter what.
Yeah, those 200 right now. The 100 Thieves and Sen games look a bit rough for them. I do think they'll be able to pick it up and do something. I mean, there's a good chance we see the 100 Thieves game just being a stomped NRG. I can see it very much so.
The difficult part is just basically they've got to fight for the 3rd seed now, because again, like they still have a pretty good shot at that, but go 3 and 2 especially. Same as G2 really. I think G2 can get a higher seed in like practical terms, but that's what you're fighting for. You're fighting for basically the upper bracket now. So yeah. That was a game.
I trust that you know Bonkat is good enough to turn this around and that they will have a resurgence, obviously, right? But I could see a slip from here, and I think, I mean, obviously it's a bit harder for you to comment on this, right? Because of you're inside a team, and just those who are watching, it's not correct etiquette for someone who has left a team to then go on to talk a lot about the inner workings of a team, which is why you'll see Strong a little bit more reserved on this topic for someone who normally yaps a lot. But I do think for NRG, the biggest issue I see right now is Keiko, and not in the sense that Keiko is a bad player or anything. It just seems like his fit is awkward right now, and it feels like he's struggling to kind of fit within NRG at times. And when it's good, it can look really good because Keiko is an amazing player and he shoots super hard and he does a lot of things really good. But I think you're seeing kind of the vulnerabilities in when he plays, and he does look like the guy who gets almost abused a lot when they're losing, right? And he does kind of stick out like a sore thumb when they're losing, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault or just him. I just think it's almost a combination of a bunch of things, and it's of course going to reflect on the guy who's been there the least, right? So yeah.
Okay, performance of the week. I was struggling a little bit with who to give this to this week. I've ended up going with Cortezia, specifically his showing for Sentinels on Haven. If you haven't seen this somehow, Sentinels finally won a game. They went 2-0 against 100 Thieves. Cortezia had a very, very good showing on Haven. 19, 11, and 3, 5 first kills, 1 first death. A shout out to Cortezia, because I think he made this 100 Thieves team look a lot worse than I think they probably are. So I've got a few clips again for this game. Hopefully he doesn't get shut down like Young did after we did this thing on him last week.
Me as well. As soon as I spoke about it, I lost. So
I mean,
be careful, Cortezia. Watch out, man.
It didn't lose, but he was thoroughly shut down by Frost and boys. Shout out Frost and the boys. Okay, so starts with this. Like Cortezia's good before they forced buy into this 100 Thieves pistol win. 100 Thieves finally winning pistols, can't win anti-ecos now. One problem at a time. Basically, they force in, get the first kill. The way he's playing around Garage is very, very smart. It basically waits for Neon to come out, waits for the timing very well, destroys it, quick timing up to here, gets very good position to post plant spot, pretty much cleans up the round for them. All very, very nice. Good stuff so far. I think 2's complex. But this is we kind of start seeing the impact very early on. This is like, this is 3rd round technically. First, he is immediately up on mid with the Spectre. Causes a threat as we go on.
For everyone at home.
Yeah.
We've said that a lot this episode. For everyone at home. Yeah. Whenever you see a Sentinel having a 5-1 first kills, first deaths, this is what it looks like. Where they're taking a lot of angles, they're taking a lot of peaks, they're taking fights on their, kind of solo island on the map.
Yeah,
that's what you saw a lot from Cortezia this game.
And they're creating this island. Yeah, like he I believe he gets the. Did he get the second cross here? He gets about he gets a second cross here. You see all the Phoenix is going here.
Yeah.
Cypher's pass. He thinks it's clear. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Gone. And this is going to stick in 100 Thieves' brain the entire game. He's smart hiding in plays. He falls back into the contained position. Cypher's basically trapped in here. Can't get out. Can't make a run around here. They've got redundancy around here. Seals a round out, essentially. And it makes a round that could otherwise have been a bit tricky into a cakewalk for Sentinels. Like, his micro macro here, let's call it that, is excellent. And he does this round to round to round to round. He's aggressive, he's pushing up on stuff, he's maintaining the mid space, he's probing. He's never at any point close to giving up a pick. He never puts himself in danger. He's just always maximising his value. Like look here even. Like they put a 4 onto sight, like get pushed back. Alarm bot here, just extremely ready for this push, right? Knows they kind of come from lower, or they can try and sprint up from grass. Plays back into spawn, sits on it, gets a sooner, clear, just seals the round. And it's interesting because this is a guy who I don't think people realise this. From what people talk around the scene, and I want to be clear, this is not any NRG players or anything like that. This is just like stuff I've heard from like various pros. They have mixed opinions on him. I think the public generally thinks this guy is like one of the best sentinels in the league. I think that's pretty much a consensus. Obviously, he had that amazing run last year as well. There are people who are like a little bit unsure about him as well, like how good he really is. I don't know where I stand because it's hard to tell a player like that without coaching him how good he is. And obviously, he had not a great kickoff as well, but he looks a lot more comfortable now. And the stuff that he's good at, the stuff in terms of this like almost intrinsic read of the game, intrinsic read of the map, which is very important for a sentinel player. Really, really good on, and I think honestly he's a presence that they really need right now.
It reminds me a lot of Sander, actually.
Yeah,
it reminds me a lot of Sander and the way he plays and the way he's approaching the game, kinda.
Who again was a very, well, I think in pro circles another polarizing player. The people who knew, we very much picking up Sander, but the people who thought he was good thought he was really, really good. But there was like a diversion of opinion, I think overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, he looks a lot more comfortable now on this team, and I think honestly he's a presence they need. So you've got an IGL now in the form of John's gone back to IGL. Slower side pace-wise, I say, in terms of how he's always IGL'd. He wants people creating space and opportunities for him to work out of as well. I don't get the feeling that's the case with Q. Like I've been following Q way before he went to M80 or sort of thing. He was like a player on our radar as potentially a pickup in 2025. Did feel like that was a guy who was a little bit impatient, a little bit more inclined to try and force the issue with his teams, force the issue as a group, as an IGL. John QT is a much slower player in that regard, and is willing to basically let these situations develop out. You've also got Redux on this team, who is, I think, still trying to figure out his role a little bit in Tier 1. He looked very, very good this game. I think his numbers were, let me get his numbers up actually. Yeah, on the stat sheet, if you looked at the stat sheet, you'd think he was the MVP of this game. He was good, wasn't the MVP. 23, 13 and 11 own assists, but 1 first kill, 0 first deaths. So Redux had a good game here. And he was just kind of like, he's trying to figure out his role, I think, in a little Tier 1 a little bit, because he's not going to get the same like one-sided, lopsided matchups that he would just as a pure mechanical player in Tier 2. A lot of games last year, look at Cuba Academy, you look at all this sort of stuff where he go like 16-4, first kills, first deaths. He doesn't seem to be able to do that at Tier 1. And because it's just, I think it's just a different level, to be fair. Maybe the opportunities are a lot harder to come by. You kind of have to get a feel for it. But he's able to play, like he's playing flex obviously now. He's able to play a lot more gun out this game, and it really helped him. He was just drifting around getting kills, just finding value, all that sort of stuff. And then the team has like obviously Jerwin, young, duelist player, not the most over-aggressive duelist player as well, fairly controlled. Jonah P, he's Jonah P. I mean, what can we say about Jonah P? Jonah P is the definition of a steady support player. So you have a lineup that's not particularly, like, not amazingly aggressive, right? So you're looking for like that aggression in your roles that aren't traditionally aggressive, I guess. And which means generally you need a good smoker. You've got Redux, and you need a good sentinel player, and you need like an aggressive sentinel player. And I don't know how I feel about the Sentinel roster overall, to be fair, still. But this lineup needs Cortez.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm also kind of unsure about how I see their chances. Really, they just seem off. It's weird with them, you know. Like they just something doesn't seem correct, but they did really good this week, to be honest. So
yeah,
props to them.
And to be fair, if there's one player who's gonna like fit in and make it work, I feel like it's Cortezia, because he kind of dumped on us at champs, man. 13-3 first kill, first blood. Like,
Well,
really good performance. He was good all of champs. If this lineup is going to work, and again, I like you, I'm not 100% convinced. It's going to rely, I think, a lot on Cortezia and how he plays. Wasn't particularly good at kickoff. This was a lot better. So it's a question of can they keep putting him in positions to do this? Can they basically allow him to do this over and over again? Can he abuse this stuff and create these one-sided situations? I guess we should all say this was all looking at attack so far. He got 4 of his 5 first kills, I believe, on defense. It was like just good number, good utility variance. He had like a couple of bad rounds. He had like a weird peak where he kind of loses a round for them. He did have like a very nice round here, actually. So I don't know how... You never know how much of it is him, but I wanted to show this round. So this is an A-take. He's basically set up for retake here. He's got the turret in the corner, which is going to get exposed pretty much as late as possible. Like if he breaks, he's going to commit to it. Waits for the timing. I think he's calling quite... You can see on the mic, he's calling quite heavily at the moment. Puts this down just to stop any push through. Has the util lineups for this. We had a very similar analogy. And he... Very, very nice round. Just very good timing. He executes it very well. It's one of those things where this is definitely a set round, right? It is always
this
opposite.
is a
But
prime,
it's like
prime Sentinels from Madrid.
Yeah. But it's a nice round, and he's giving the info. He's giving all the stuff. He's holding the. He also has the presence to slow stuff down on site, make all this sort of work. That's important. Like he's giving presence at the end of the day, and I think that's really valuable. So, good game from him. Good series from him overall. Interested to see what happens going forward. I believe. I mean, Sentinels. Obviously, we haven't talked much about Sentinels, but Sentinels. Before this week, I would have said they probably wouldn't make it into playoffs. Now it's probably they are tilted towards making it into playoffs. They've got EG, Fury, and RNG to end the run, as it were. All 3 winnable games. It looks like at this point we could actually see Sentinels go 4-1. It's not inconceivable, which is interesting. But
I could also see them going 1-4 from that.
Yeah, it can go either way. But
I can see them losing to EG next week.
Yeah,
I could. That's going to be my prediction. That's my hot take for. I don't know if we're doing that segment, but that's my hot take.
Yeah.
EG will beat Sentinels next week.
Yeah, that is hot. Okay, moving on. Map of the week. PRX versus Secret on Split. So, we're talking a little bit about this map. We'll talk about general state of Split, I think, here. Again, Secret are not expected to be anywhere near this game. Most one-sided game on paper this entire season in any region. Maybe kickoff was different, but certainly in Split 1. And Secret are 2-10 up at the half. Well, they're 9-3 at the half, rather, and then 10-3 after Pistol. Comprise running Neon, Sky, Cypher, controllers. Same comp as week 2, except they had Omen in for Astra, which I already said, this makes sense. I guess that thing will come out afterwards, but basically there's a whole thing on this map with verticality, which you kind of lose. That this is the reason not to play Astra on this map. You lose a lot of, and like particularly if you're playing in the particular comps in terms of duelist. Essentially, when you're attacking sites, like these ramp takes are a lot slower. This sort of split take is a lot harder to execute, more angles to clear, all this sort of stuff. You kind of want the ability to basically make a fast take from here, make a fast take from here, and then send someone up here, send someone up here. Well, we had an entire set play where we would send Omen up into one of these spots, for example. One called Momoshiki back on 2025 NRG. It's important, and so it makes sense that they regressed this comp essentially back to that. PRX are running the competition against Nongshimus in week 1, which was Jet Ray Sky. Comp they ran for all of 2024, what was their best map. Actually, one of the few comps that hasn't really been changed by the initiator changes, I guess, because Sky actually got stronger.
Yeah.
So I have a couple.
True.
I have a couple of rounds here to show. This is a pistol, but this sets the tone for how. Like, in a nutshell, this is what Secret did to win this. To basically make this map close. 4 people walk down mid into 5 people from thing. And this Viper's just hanging back here, and they 5-0 them. And this sets the tempo for the entire game to come, man. Because Secret, just don't give PRX any room the entire game. Like, generally speaking, these setups look something like this. The Neon was playing down here every single round. Viper's like somewhere around mid. Cypher somewhere around mid. They would... I haven't seen a team do this for a while, but I guess because you're not playing Cypher anymore, but this was consistent every single round. Put this up, put this up. Just put the trip and put the orb up, so teams like have a very hard time coming up into this area, because like every team likes to walk up into this area and play out from there. PRX can't do this. They're also just like randomly pushing this lobby with 3 people. They're like sacking this Neon here with a judge, and they're putting 2 people on here. Always taking lobby essentially, and just relying on the fact that PRX can't walk up onto the trip, which they don't the entire game. They're generally weak-siding Cypher as well. So you're just walking into... You're either just walking into a stack, or you're getting like double stalled by Cypher picking up like util like this, and I mean this sort of stuff, double stall util. Now if you're PRX, you want to speed up into this really. You kind of want to bypass the first line of defense and play out of your smokes, which you have a lot of. But this was hard for PRX because PRX are a team that plays so much for a feel of the game. And this is a hard adjustment to get like a feel for, if that makes sense. It's very easy to verbalise, I think. It's very hard to feel it. Especially without a Neon in their comp. It's very important to remember they do not have a Neon. They have Raise Jet. So they don't really have the ability that we've seen every other team do, where it's just like, yeah, we just run through the entirety up here. We just run through the entirety up here. They can't do this with this comp. They play okay. They get unlucky on a couple of rounds, to be fair. But Secret are dictating this game. And then we flip to attack. And unfortunately for them, just things get much harder at that point. I haven't seen much Secret, so take this with a grain of salt. This felt very similar to RRQ, to Liquid, to a lot of teams like this, where it's a multilingual team fundamentally, okay technical IGLs, decent cross-map protocols, but they're always a little bit hesitant tempering up and getting out on site as a result. And there's some stuff like Secret are greedy with their half-buys. They have a couple of rounds that should work out better, but they are struggling like hell to find the holes here. Now, of course, after we saw yesterday, there was a question of, is this a Secret? Okay, so to specify here. Yes, by yesterday, we're filming this on Monday night. We saw the 100 Thieves versus Sentinels game on Split yesterday, which went to, I think, 7 overtimes. Defending team on that map versus attacking team won 25 rounds versus 11. Massive skew. This map was 25 rounds on defense, 9 on attack. And I don't know what you think. I'm interested in what you think about this, Ella. It kind of feels like attack macro and split has kind of been stale for like a long time. Like you can even go back to 2020 because like people remember this used to be like completely cluttered with like a bunch of extra boxes. It was just completely impossible to clear it, so you kind of had to just what you would do essentially. You just pick Sage and you wall out onto B and just run up onto B, or I don't even remember what you did on A, to be honest. But this was just like, yeah, you just did this. Like in the game's infancy, because you can't do anything around here. You just die. You get and like raise like 2 nades at this point. You get double raise nades in the mid, you just die.
Mate, it was even closed off then, don't you remember?
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, mate. Just pause for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the thing is, I agree with you that it is a map that favors defense, but not for the reason people realize, I think.
Okay.
The reason that this map can feel so defense-sided is because it's one of the only maps in the game where the defense actually has priority on a lot of like round starts. B lobby, A lobby, mid are all defense priority, if you think about it. And
yes.
I'm not sure if there's any other map in the game that operates like that, by the way, where it is maybe Fracture to some extent. Well, I don't think Fracture is as aggressively defensive side.
I don't think Fracture I don't think is really defensive side, just based because it's just there's 4 holes to be holding. I guess maybe Haven. Maybe Haven.
Not as much though, mate, because for example on Fracture, Arcade is defense-sided. And when we say defense-sided, we're talking about when I say priority, I mean if a team plays out the round in a good default, then most of the time they will have priority on taking it, and the attackers have to either respond by brute forcing their way through and getting a kill or 2, or just waiting a tempo and then retaking it, right?
Yeah.
and Fracture, you know, Arcade goes to defenses, Dish goes to defense in general, and A main goes to defense, whereas B is questionable, right? It does probably goes to attackers. And I guess on Fracture as well, a lot of these can be 50-50 depending on the comp, whereas Split, it's a lot. You can almost with any comp can have priority on defense, and I think that's the reason you see
this like
these kind of
full automatic line. This is pretty favored.
Yeah,
this is pretty
full automatic line. Like all of the, you're basically instantly taking all the lines, and you in general you're seeing a lot of 2-1-2s as well on Split.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how our teams used to play as well, right? Where just full lobby control, full lobby aggression.
Yeah,
it works.
You have a Viper and just skips around mid, and then just put 2 on it. Just put 2 and 2.
Yeah, this is almost the anatomy of a split round is 2-1-2 with the Viper playing to basically delay in mid, bubble up, spray through the bubble, and then molly after the bubble, basically to delay as much time for the rotates to come in from the sides, right? And at the same time, you're seeing the wings push out, and they're going to contest the line on both sides with either util or with the AWP or with guns, and then they're going to, for example, probably get retaken on, so they're going to come back a little bit, right? So you're seeing that's how people play this game, and I think that's why it feels so defense-sided, because it's one of the only maps that has defensive priority, basically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, yeah. It's all very like you have that control, and it's all very predictable as well in terms of because the map is also so small. I think a lot of the attack timings, like you remember the classic timing of just like finding a walk up here, essentially when your team's like full of 4B main stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's all very predictable, and it's been predictable for a long time as well. There's like a bunch of stuff that goes into it.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any question here that Secret's plan was defensively very good in terms of like playing very expansive with this space, trusting the neon, going free into lobbies, all this sort of stuff. It was a good plan. I'm not going to discredit them. I do kind of wonder if this map is becoming one of the most one-sided in the game. We always think of the center as a defense map. Maybe Split's not a defense map. But yeah, in the end, this map goes to OT. Funny thing about OT, it's kind of a weird thing, right? I don't think people get this. So like we had like an amazing record in these OT games on NRG. And because you instantly flip sides back, and because there's nothing to really set from round to round, it kind of becomes a case of, okay, what have I seen in this game, and what is my one round call, what is my one round gamble based on what I've seen in this game? And Jesse Vash actually has some pretty good calls in this game, in this overtime, to be fair. Could give credit where it's due. This was a good one. So they have actually lost the defense here. They won most of the defense. They lost the defense. They're having to stay in the game. There's this beautiful exec where they blind. Yeah, they blind. They don't get the kill on him. They flash him out on the fly. They kind of basically pull him back. They pull onto. They get this good. But it's pretty much as good as it gets for Secret in this game. They get a good 3v2. This BIM is mostly just a defensive slugfest, man. And it was one where teams were both getting quicker and quicker and quicker every time, because all they're trying to do is they're not trying to work the map at all. They're trying to beat a time. They're trying to get a plant. And I want to highlight the PRX round on ISIS's game because it's really fucking good. And this has kind of been like, I mean, PRX are insane in this situation, I will say. This was the thing that surprised me going up against them at Masters. Like there are certain things in terms of a team that you don't really understand until you play them. One of them is PaperX are incredibly good at icing out games. They're incredibly creative with like how they like use ults and stuff, and without having to have input from timeouts coaching stuff. So look at this run. Look what he's doing this run. It's really, really cool. So they've just won the Invia's had an amazing game here, by the way. This guy just like loves this map. He destroyed us on this map as well. Look what they're doing. They're literally sitting 3 people in spawn, listening for any mid push. Don't get a mid push. Fake B hard. Go in, throw util.
What were they waiting for there?
They're waiting to see if somebody. They're waiting for this sound cue to see if somebody pushed down mid quickly. Because you got some Neil and Naomi. And then they just go back to A. Like they're really like anticipating this. He knows it's like a fairly safe walk up here. Like they would have to like walk so slow down. I think does he catch one here or no? Yeah. So he knows they can't be on the left. He knows they have to be. They can slow down. He loses it back there. But they just keep putting them, and again he's full selling this, and they've bitten hard on this.
Yeah.
And they go all the way back to B. Slow walk out. Put one smoke down. He's still lurking mid, so he's stopping anything. This team comes back. Flashes out. And yeah, they just catch up with a good post plant. It was a really impressive round from them on a map where, like, the entire thing, like, if you watch, obviously we haven't seen the other 4 OTs. For like 8 rounds, all these teams were doing were speeding up, and it was like worse every single time. It was just a mess. And they come out of this round. I think this is what you have to do against, probably, to be fair, where you're just having to extend the round out so far. And you have to make these incredible, like, you have to make an incredible call to like break the deadlock on attack. But it was impressive for them, and it was an entertaining match. It was very impressive how PRX iced it out. But it was very much from the perspective of both teams just banging their head against the wall, man, and trying to figure out what to get through this nightmare defensive problem. I think we'll see how it develops. We'll see if teams come up with answers for it. To be fair, again, this is obviously G2 have played hardball in this map twice, lost twice. It does give you a lot more latitude on attack, but they just lose too much on other sort of things. This might be getting to the point where they probably need to start. They may need to start thinking soon about, do we need to rework this map a little bit? But I'm not sure what changes you'd have to make.
I think it's getting into that territory with that map in Ascent, where it's just becoming stale, basically, and it's just seeing a regurgitation of the same thing over and over.
Yeah, again. I think to be fair, I'm not sure how you do it. I think you probably have to do something about B lobby, but just like open up, because that is the most automatic line of the game. It's kind of weird, honestly, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, on to match of the week: BBL versus Giant X. And I leave the floor open to you, Salah.
Okay. So I want you to engage in an exercise with me.
Okay.
And I want everyone at home to engage in an exercise with me. I have 2 comps up here on Valorant, right?
Sure.
Which comp is Giant X's and which comp is BBL's? Based on everything we know about history, assuming no one's gaslighting us, which comp belongs to which team? Knowing what we know about Pipson and Giants, knowing what we know about BBL.
I mean, super structured, slow team. I mean, this has to be Giants comp, right?
You think so, yeah. But for some reason, BBL's current meta read on this map is to play the most anti-BBL way I've ever seen in my life. And I was astonished watching this, because you're a team that had so much success coming through Ascension. In Ascension, before the double duelist meta even really kicked in, you were playing double duelist on Haven. You were playing Phoenix on Pearl and stuff like this, I remember. So why now, when you could have had a continuation of your meta with the Euro thing, you had going, why have we decided to go back to 2022 Fnatic? And it's shocking me. Like, I really want to. I'd love to be a fly in the wall. I was understanding Turkish as well to what led them to make this decision on this comp, but I think it just shows a little bit of almost they're completely lost in the sauce, because they're just too talented for this, man. Like, and I have a lot of respect for their coaches as well. So this must. I mean, it does happen for everyone at home. It does happen that you get locked in an echo chamber when you're in teams, and it can be very hard to see how it should be. It's a lot easier to comment from the outside, guys, especially when you have a lot of time like me and Strong do. But it just made no sense, mate. Like, the BBL is a team. I mean, you played against them, right?
Yeah, we banned
were
this
aggressive
map. We banned this map because we were scared of what are the stuff they're going to do on this map, the stuff they're going to do to us. The entire fixation we basically had going into that match was, the fixation I had anyway was, look at the way this team moves around, look at the timings they take, look at these sort of random movements you can't predict in terms of how they swing stuff, all that sort of stuff. We looked at all of that and we said, yeah, bro, we cannot play these guys on Haven. Even though we had Haven really high on our own list, we're banning Haven. If we knew they were going to play Breach Jet, bro, we would have opted into that experience. We're like, okay, play Breach Jet, play your most disciplined Valorant possible, play like you wish you had an Astra, play like you're looking at VODs of somebody retaking on C-site and just clutching your heart, man. We would have opted right into that experience. We would have signed that out. We would have got the Waitrose card for that, But nah, we had to play against aggressive BBL. We had to get BBL pushing and taking every timing, man. Now we have this.
It's astonishing, mate. And okay, for everyone at home, I've made a little it'll do for us a little graph of how Haven, at a simple level, runs, which is there's zones on the map, right? And each zone is basically you're asking yourself before every round, which zone are we contesting as attackers and defenders? As defenders, the most common zone you're really attacking is going to be the red zone. You're going to, in general, have this kind of two-pronged play on A. You're sometimes going to contest C with AWP, with just peeking, for example. You're going to very occasionally see, the old school Yasin Lahmari run down C with breach utility. And then, some peaks out from mid, of course, right on timing. And on Haven in general, you're just seeing an amalgamation of all of these, right, of contesting these areas. What we were watching was some of the most passive Valorant I think I've seen flat out in the last 2 weeks, and from BBL especially, where we're seeing BBL start the rounds from here, mate. And then we're seeing Lovers Rock go, taking a little bit of a peek into short, taking a little bit of peek on the long. There's one round on defense they played that actually I said, okay, this looks like BBL, where it's just Rose and Lovers Rock peeking long, and it just they happen to find the correct timing. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, mate, but during kickoff, these guys were running it down these areas. They were running into the red zones. They were peeking it. They didn't care. You would see Lovers Rock plus LaRock plus Loiter pushing the fuck out of this red zone, and then at the same time, maybe Kurin taking a peek from here, and it was amazing to watch, and it was some of the most entertaining Valorant ever, in my opinion. And now you're watching BPL, play, first of all, this comp, which is a huge mismatch. Second of all, this style, which genuinely just looks like a 2022 Fnatic playbook, where it's almost like they're not accounting for what Giants has and what Giants could do. And okay, Giants comp is a comp that has incredible offhand utility clears. What that means is you have a Neon and a Phoenix. Neon and Phoenix can do this thing where Neon is going to slide and insta-stun somebody this year, because Neon stun is instant. It is extremely punishing. She can just slide, stun this guy, and have the Phoenix peek out and kill her, right? And on the other side, you have this comp from BPL, and I don't see the way you punish the Phoenix comp, the World Giants comp, unless you have incredible timing, basically, and you have to be running these deep set plays where you almost have to be contesting this with the breach utility and trying to overwhelm them with 2 or 3 numbers. I think I would have liked to see. I think you saw one round of a 4-1 from BBL, but outside of that, I would have wanted on the defense for them to just 3-man push this every round with the breach rotating into here at least, right? At least if you're going to play this comp, you're going to play it with some level of aggression. But now with the way the initiate util works as well, this is hard. You can't do this with Sova and Breach like you used to back in the day, right? It used to be that you're going to get 3 stuns out on this default, or at least 2, remember, and 2 Sova arrows as well. But now you're getting 1 maybe before the actual execute comes, and it just, everything is off with this BBL team right now, man. And even then, it was still close, by the way. And even then, we still saw a good map, kind of. Well, relative to score.
Yeah, I mean, but one thing I should say is, to be fair here, while the style is kind of not what we're used to seeing from BBL, this is the old comp they ran during Ascension, I'm pretty sure. Like, they are going back to an old comp in that regard, but obviously it's almost not the same style, and they've certainly come backwards a lot on that, yeah. There's been a regression in terms of how they're playing the map.
This comp just fundamentally is completely different than it was during that Ascension run as well, because of the changes they made to utility. These like Sova and Breach are the prongs of this comp, right? And as soon as those two have one less wave they can play off of, this comp becomes a lot more static. It becomes a lot more just boring and has almost a nothing burger, right?
Yeah.
And you saw this a lot, mate, and you saw it. Especially on Giants attack, where they did do quite well, and they were very good at, Ara had a really good game, and they were very good at isolating these kills and being able to just use the comp correctly. On defense, Giants it felt like they didn't know how to use their comp, and at this time you saw it was crazy to me. And from Giants side, I would have wanted to see them fight a lot more in these zones. You saw a lot more splitting from the two duelists on the Giants side, from the Phoenix and Neon, which I don't like on their defense. I would have wanted to see them shove it down BBL's throat a lot more on the defense and being able to just, take the fight to them with this comp. Because again, guys, the key parts about these two comps are that when BBL have this core, let's say, right, this Jet relies a lot on the Sova and the Breach to basically create good opportunities. The reason this shouldn't work in this meta, or this doesn't really work in this meta, is because you have two characters who have instant reactions to, well, semi-instant reactions. Phoenix, if he plays correctly, does have instant reaction in the way that, for example, if BBL wanted to play a trap, right, where Lover's Rock is going to peek, and they tried this a few times, Lover's Rock is going to peek down short, or he's going to run down long with a Breach stun and an arrow, he can just flash him out of this, and Lover's Rock can't do anything about it because Breach doesn't, as a character, and Jet as a character cannot react to this in the same way that Neon and Phoenix can react. Neon can just stun out of hand if, as soon as they see a position for it, Phoenix can just flash out of hand, and so you're seeing. Basically, if we had seen a lot more of these zone contests in these deeper zones, then I think you would have seen BBL get run over, because I don't think they would have had any answers to this, right? Yeah. So I do think this score flatters them, and I think the what you saw on this map is a general problem with BBL right now. It seems like they've lost their balls, and to my Turkish brothers in BBL, I really need to see that back. I need to see this almost. You were the biggest benefactors of the previous meta with Yoru. It hasn't changed, and I think right now they have this mental block, and it almost seems like they don't believe they can do what they were doing in the past, whereas they can. Larocque played the Phoenix a lot, and Phoenix, in my opinion, is a good meta read right now. You see apac running it a lot. You see, I don't know if I think it's that common in America, but in apac it's super common.
Coming up in America, I believe, as well.
And, you definitely have the ability to be able to play this comp that Giants is playing, and you will play it better than most teams in the world, right? So I want to see you playing that style again. I don't want to see 2022 Fnatic just with Larocque instead of Leo and all these people. I don't want to see that. I want to see BBL pushing these zones and fighting aggressively. I want to see them taking timings. I want to see them do all these things. And you're just watching this game, mate. They're sitting in these positions where they're taking small peeks out, and sometimes they're doing like a mid trap, and if they don't get it, they're just going to rotate off, and just a very toothless defense. And on attack, it worked out a little bit. I do think because of Giants' misplays rather than BBL doing something extremely good.
There was some aggression. Kruum was going on. You remember what a look map timing is, right? Where you just literally walk out onto A and just somehow completely have the entire map off of it. They had like a full look. It's like we call it a look map timing because it's like it's a reference to a team we had on Honk back in 2021. There was like, I can't remember if it was a practice or an official. Basically, one of the players just walked all the way out onto A and just started like 40 seconds in a round. They were discussing on the other side of the map, and just someone starts he just starts shouting, "Guys, look map, look map, look map!" And he's like literally walked all the way to heaven, and just stuck from there. So we call it a look map timing as a result. But like Kroon has some like really good timings like that. But yeah. They dug way too much of a hole for themselves on attack. Giants just had to string together a couple of ult rounds, basically, and they did. You can't play like that on defense and expect to win the map.
And again, I just think this is a mischaracterization of BBL of themselves, really, and what they're good at. And it can happen, but I really do. I hope this gets changed for next week, and I hope they feel comfortable going back into... and I think this is the trap that a lot of teams are falling into. They think that once the Euro is gone, and I think they were a big benefactor of it, but I think once they realize the Euro is gone, they think that it's over and they can't play that style. What they don't realize they can, just in a different way. They're trying to maybe, for example, just replicate what they're doing with that instead of trying to
the replicate point is important. So I don't know how much you saw of the Lotus. Ironically, this team has historically, I'm pretty sure, sucked at this map. They've never been good on it. They come in here with this comp: Neon, Raze, Vise, Fade, and Omen. Pretty standard stuff. They run into Giants doing some slightly wacky stuff. Not wacky, but they're running chamber double control on this map. And this turns out to be a really easy game for BBL, because just Larocque just runs over a Giants team that's playing the Ray. He not playing the Rays, but he runs over a Giants team that's playing the Chambers, playing all this really like slow stuff. Just disrespects Fade the entire game, holds his ground. Let me see if I can get up. There's an eco day one which is kind of indicative of like how they're playing on this. Get up here.
Knowing when to pick.
There we go. That's the right map. Oh, this was. I think this was the wrong map, but in any case, they had a lot of they had a lot of stuff going for them basically on that map, and they just disrespected them completely, held their ground, just won. They were getting deep lines everywhere. They abused the fact that Giants comp couldn't really knock them off of anything, and they just won off of that basically. And hit C a million times, just not a close map. And that's the thing, that like this is what this team ultimately is good at. And they need, I don't know why they're going back to this sort of this old style on Haven when it doesn't even work anymore. But yeah, it's when they play well, they play well. I don't know how much you saw of the split as well. I've got some stuff for this.
Go on.
Okay, so I have played against BBL split, obviously. We got taken to like 4 overtime, I think, against them. We struggled and had to get some bullshit off. But it wasn't amazing. It was good, but not amazing. But this kind of speaks this identity crisis you're talking about here, because they really don't know what to do on this map right now. So you go look at the recent games as well. They have changed comp 5 times in 5 games. And they are not playing the same as they were, man. Like, the defense wasn't even that bad. They get 7 rounds in defense. They're taking space fairly well. They're swinging on Giants, singles, and pairs pretty well. They're doing some of the stuff they're good at. But then suddenly they just lose a round. They take a timeout. And there's it's weird. It feels really. I mean, I saved this clip because I just no, this isn't. It's like I just want you to look at the body language here. So they lost this round. Been going pretty well after this point. They've again 5-4 up. They just look stressed, man. Look in the coaching booth. Like obviously you'll see this in a second. Like you see coaches like this. Like he's like Kia's full stressed. And it's just like something feels a little bit off, and they finish this round. They finish this half at 7-5. They go to 9-5, and they look just dead, man. I mean, to be fair, Split is a weird map right now. We'll talk about this a little bit later. There's like a weirdly heavy defense-sided thing to Split, but they just get stuck. And I want you to I had another round here that I want you to show you. So this was, I think, like, this is kind of the round where they kind of lose it, basically, after this round. So you can see they're playing a 1-3-1. They play this 1-3-1 structure a lot in this game. Look, and to be fair, they're on an eco. But look how far back they're playing off of B, and look how far back they're playing off of A. And this is why they're pushing Heaven at the same time with, I think it was a Bucky there and 2 Sheriffs.
Yeah.
It's sloppy from the Plaque players. It's really like just conservative from the weak side players. They end up swapping the entire half between these like 1-3-1 defaults, where it's just really weak in all 3 things of the map, and then just going like straight to A site and just not doing anything. Because there was a little bit of a thing with this comp, by the way, because they are running the Astra. It means they don't have the Omen, which means is a big problem for this map, because it means you can't jump up here, you can't jump up here on attack. But obviously Giants have the same problem, to be fair. Or Giants have the waylay to mitigate that. That is a bit of a comp problem, to be fair. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened to this team, but like the confidence just drained out of them as this game went on, and we're just not used to seeing that.
Because they were getting a lot of hate for the shit talking they do, right?
Yeah.
Which I personally think is amazing. I will never understand people, man, who watch esports, because how are you watching a team like BBL, who are these kids who basically came from Premier? They're sitting there on the international stage talking shit to everyone, and they're backing it up half the time as well.
Yeah.
I don't understand what people disliked about that and what they could have had possibly to say about that. I do wonder how much of that is affecting them mentally, because they are kids at the end of the day, and it's not easy just sitting there and seeing just basically getting dragged on Twitter, especially in the Turkish community. When you get dragged, you get dragged. Like Turks know where to hit. So I do wonder how much of that is affecting them. and how much, for example, the loss to you guys where they shouldn't have lost really, or probably shouldn't have lost, how much that affected them and was like kind of a turning point for them. And you know how there's always these weird moments with teams, right, where the one result can just completely flip how you feel about everything, right? And so I do wonder how much all of these things affect them.
Yeah.
But this is not the BBL that we came to love, right? This is something else. This is BBL with Aslan M Shadow, basically.
Jesus.
Oh, I've done that to him. I kind of like him as well. I don't know why I did that to him. Yeah. There's so many different players I could have pulled out. I pulled him out. But yeah, like this just seems off, mate. And you can see it in the way they're playing. You can see it in these 2023 rotations and just plays they're making. And yeah,
it's rough. I mean, on Giants' side, credit on Giants, they look solid.
I looked a lot better, I would say.
I've had a very solid series. West Side's playing Waylay, where you kind of didn't mention this. This is a thing that's happening for some reason.
That he's just switched the dual list, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, he's playing. He surprised me well on the Wailing Phoenix. I kind of wouldn't expect it to be his game, but actually, to be fair, I'd expect Phoenix to be his game. Phoenix makes sense. Waylay's surprising. He did. I think he went positive.
He is just an insane aimer, though, so I could see him pulling off everything.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah, I guess that's the case. Yeah. I mean, and Giants look better. I mean, you get a bit of spark of creativity from Aaron, like one other player on that team. It's a Pipson team. They're all good approaches on site, all good on that. But obviously, the question is now, can BBL bounce back? Because they basically have a winning in the next week against Vitality. If they win that game, I think they at least make players as fourth seed. If they lose that game, they're done. And same for Vitality. If they lose that game, they're done. They're out. I think they're pretty much out of playoffs. Because look, you can explain away everything that's like been bad in these games. It's just whether they can bounce back, because they started weak. They've lost their swing games. Foot and Eternal Fire, obviously very strong. Probably going to both make playoffs. Familiar with their games. It's this delicate thing, particularly in EMEA, where it's like you've gone from being top team in the region to you can easily just like drop off like a cliff, man. And the question of can they come back from that? I think this next week will be a real test of them. Because you have two teams who are not in disarray, I'd say, but they are like they've shown weaknesses, they've shown flaws, and they need to win this week to get back on track. And the pressure in both cases is on them. Like we were talking about, obviously we talked about Heretics KC last week as a turning point for both teams, which it probably will be, to be fair, still. But funnily enough, neither of those fan bases, I mean, maybe Carmine a little bit, but neither of those fan bases are as vicious about their teams as Vitality and BBL fans about their teams. These are two.
True.
Well, and that, but also because the expectation, not even just because of fan bases, the expectations of both teams when they would become in the split and be top two.
Yeah,
that's such high expectations. So, in process, we'll have to see how this plays out. But yeah, it was a.
I mean, BBL fans are crazy, mate. You see, after I think one loss or the EF loss, they started saying, "Oh, comeback's free agent." It's just like, mate. Yeah. Turkish fans are like that in football as well, where they're the most reactionary people ever. Where they will just change opinion from day to day. Yeah.
Results are results, I guess. Yeah. So that we'll see what happens with that. Alright, so that's that for the week. We had to move some segments around a little bit this week. Salah's not feeling the best.
I don't know if, I'm not sure if anyone could tell, but I'm like currently having one of those migraines where you can't see out of one eye. So that if you see any interesting twitching or stuff like that, I promise that's what it is, and not the use of any substances or anything like that.
And not pulling a rhyme. If you remember that.
But yeah, it's been rough, honestly. But
yeah. But thank you for taking the time, and thank you for watching. Because the plan is we're still going to keep releasing this probably every Tuesday till the end of the season. Salah will be off, not next week, right? It's the week after.
Essentially, yeah. We're going to find out if I can be there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Potentially from May, basically, just for a week or two.
Yeah, so we'll figure it out. Guest host, guest whatever, you know. We're going to keep this rolling, and then we'll roll this into London, and then that will be interesting for all involved. I will be in London physically. Not sure about Salah. Depends. We figure out, but should be fun.
In London, we'll be carrying around documents of strategies and harassing teams who refuse to watch the podcast.
Yeah, no, we'll just be like throwing them out from the stands. You know, we'll get up there, we'll just get up to the highest level, and we'll just like be throwing out binders like a t-shirt cannon, you know, in reverse. Hope they just land on the desk of the players. That's the plan. Thank you for watching, and see you next week.